The only time I gave medication a shot was in college. I was seeing a counselor there. The reason I was seeing a counselor was I actually had a professor recommend that I go to the behavioral health. He was a priest, actually, and he was teaching a literature class, and I was really struggling to keep up with the reading material for the class. It was the Odysseus, the Odyssey, and it was a pretty tough class. The amount of reading you had to do, it was like, okay, here's class on Monday, and then on Wednesday, you have to have read 50 pages of the Odyssey or of other ones that we were reading. The Odyssey was the main one that I remember. But anyway, I was just so frustrated, and I would sit down in the library and I could just not focus. And I would just stare at the page, and it didn't make sense. It was hard to comprehend. Super frustrated. I go in to see the teacher. Like I said, he was a priest. And I go into his office hours and I tell him like I just can't focus. I can't do this. And I think I started crying. I know I was crying, but I can't remember if I started crying before or after he told me that I should seek counseling. I think it was before. I think I started crying and then he told me he thought that someone had hurt me in the past. He said that I remember him saying that, and that definitely made me cry. I was like, oh my God, I'd never had someone tell me that. And it felt true. And it probably is true. So, I listened to him and I went to the behavioral health and I was seeing a counselor. And she decided that it was a good idea for me to try medication. So she made me an appointment with the campus psychologist or psychiatrist, and I went and saw her, the doctor, and she put me on Prozac. And I tried it out, and within a day or two, I started to feel very restless. That was the main thing that I remember is that it made me feel very restless, and especially when I would wake up in the morning. Like normally, you wake up and you're just kind of groggy or whatever. But I would wake up and I would just have this restlessness throughout my whole body. Like I couldn't keep still. Like it just I felt jittery. Um, I guess restlessness is the best word to describe it. And so I didn't like that feeling. And like I said, I was already against the whole idea. I was kind of just going through the motion. So I only took it for about a week. And you could say that because I was so against it and I didn't think that it could help, that I'm setting myself up for failure. And I went into it with a closed mind. And you could say that if I went into it believing that it could help, then maybe it actually could have helped. And I could be a completely different person now. Maybe true. But I'm just so, I'm just so against it personally. I'm very against it. I think it's, I think it's a band-aid. And I think it does help a lot of people because a lot of people do believe that there's something wrong with them, that they have a chemical imbalance, and that this medication restores that balance. And so that's what they need. And then they take it and they feel better. And I can't help but think that it's just covering up their real problems. And so then they go throughout life and they're able to function better and they feel better. But I think the medicine gets in the way of a person's ability to dig deep and actually make real progress in changing themselves and learning about themselves. I mean, we see it clearly with people who self-medicate. you know, person who goes their whole life alcoholism or drug addiction, we all agree that those people have have really damaged their own ability to help themselves. And you you hear it said that they still have the mind. They're still the same person they were in high school. You could be 40 years old, 50 years old, but they're still the same person that they were in high school because they've been doing drugs or alcohol the whole time. And I can't help but think that's true, maybe to a lesser extent, but still true with people that are chronically on medications, psychoactive medications. And so I always wanted to do it myself. I always wanted to learn about cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, exercise, diet, all those things that you hear about and you learn about. And I always want to do those things to help me become the person I want to be and help me become less scared, more confident, have have my own self more. There's the idea in psychology of the fully integrated self, or the Maslow's hierarchy, where at the top of the pyramid is the self-actualization. And I always wanted to strive for that self-actualization, and I've just always believed that the drugs and the alcohol would get in the way of it. That's not to say I didn't give in to a lot of drugs and alcohol in my life, but I've always wanted to get away from that. And a medication, doing it at a party is one thing, but to be on a medicine all the time, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're under the influence of it. I really just never liked that idea. So I don't want to dissuade anyone. I mean, I want everyone to think about these things for themselves. But and if you're on these things and it helps you, hey, good for you. You're probably better off than I am. If I believe they could help me, then they probably would, but I just don't believe that they can help me.